Good evening, and welcome to the first official installment of the Everyday Finance Podcast, where we help our community maintain financial security and financial independence.
Yes, sir. We're back here again with Alexander Padron
and Garen Callender. So today we'll be discussing a topic that I actually hold very near and dear to my heart, and that is student loans. As you all may know, I actually attend an accredited university, the Florida State University. Go Noles. And, I have been blessed with the opportunity of attending university for essentially free. And that is thanks to a scholarship that I received before attending the university by the Ida and Cliff Viner Community Scholarship Program. And they actually helped cover basically everything. It came to my tuition, my books, my meal plans, and everything that'll keep me afloat and continue going on through my college journey. So I'm very fortunate in order to have that, but a lot of people aren't. And, we're really here to kind of just get to the nitty gritty of the student loan aspect of it when people take in debt in order to fund their education. And hopefully you guys find the information helpful.
I couldn't agree more. And, we did say this video is going to be about student debts. And we're going to get right into that. But, one of the main things if you want to reduce your student debts is, you should be looking for scholarships. And there's honestly, there's scholarships for any type of person from anywhere with any kind of degree that you're looking for. So realistically, if you're going to school and you're taking on debts, you should always be looking for scholarships, regardless of, if you're just looking to getting into college or, if it's your last year, you can always be picking up something, and that's what you should be trying to do because it's basically free money. And to leave it on the table is just, it's leaving money right out of your pocket. So you're either taking it from your future or, you're not taking it now. So you should be trying to look for as many scholarships as you can possibly attain.
And I know this isn't very an easy thing to do. I actually ended up applying to over 200 different scholarships and I ended up only getting one. And I can't be more grateful that I did get the scholarship that I did, but it's not easy applying to them either. They're very time consuming. There's a whole bunch of different steps that you have to do. A lot of them require multiple different essays or, short answer responses. And it's very difficult to actually sit down and put the time aside to do it. But I promise you it's well worth it. And it can get very discouraging, especially when you start seeing a lot of scholarship rejections or you don't hear back from them. But I promise you, if you keep up with it and you keep with it, it'll pay off. And it's a lot better than sitting down and acquiring debt through loans, which you have to pay interest on and everything, at least in the long run, because you don't have to make those payments or you can minimize those payments. And each payment that you have to make has interest added on top of it, which will make your payments even larger and extend the life of your loan. And there's this it's a debacle. The whole reason why we call this episode a debacle was because it really is.
Yes, I actually I couldn't agree more. It gets it to be an incredibly interesting circumstance. You really got to get to the root of it and what are student loans? They're specifically just debts that are given out to, the youngest of possible credit worthy individuals. In fact, they can give out student loans to people who are 17, below typical credit worthy age. And, essentially it's an interesting thing because while they're supposed to help you pay off your school or, afford to go to whatever school you're looking to go to if you don't have the means. But they're given both publicly and privately. And actually about 90% of student loans given out are federal student loans. So they're actually being provided majority by the government to these students. And, it can be a big decision to make, but when you go into the financial aid offices, at your local universities, they kind of make it seem like it's not a big deal. You sign the paperwork, you get in, you get out, and ain't nothing but a thing. You got to pay your tuition. So it's really a big decision that you need to look at. You need to look at how to minimize them, because the typical repayment plan for student loans are actually 10 years. So, if you're 18, getting into college, thinking about getting those loans that they want to sign you up for at the financial aid office, it's going to be 10 years. At least that's what they say. That's without you trying to pay it down faster, which really the average person who takes out student loans actually end up taking almost double that time to repay them. So lifetime commitment.
So student loans can be a great thing. We're not here to say that student loans are the worst thing possible. Because if you think about it, your education is an investment. Now, obviously, it depends on the majors that you're taking and what you're going after and what you want to do. But at the end of the day, your education is an investment. So in order to grow that investment, you obviously have to put some sort of money into it. Education in college is not free. And these tuition rates are going up, and all fees and prices and everything nowadays are going up for college and your education. So these student loans end up becoming larger and larger lump sums of money that people have to end up taking in. Now, once again, I am emphasizing that student loans aren't always a bad thing. They can be great. They can really put you on track, help you get your education and your degree, set you up for a 5-6 figure job right out of college. And, for some people, it's great. It works out that way. But for a majority of people, it really doesn't end up playing out that way. We end up seeing that people have student loans right outside of college, paying them off 10, 20, 30 years. I had a coworker back when I worked at a real estate company, and he was in his late 30s. He got out of college at approximately 22, 23 years old. And I think at like 35, 36 years old, he finally finished paying off his student loans. And, you get out of college at 22, you pay it off at 37. That's 15 years of a loan that you have to pay off. And a lot of these loans end up coming with high interest rates.
I actually couldn't agree more, because these are supposed to be, secure loans, really safe, a good thing, because like you said, it's supposed to be for funding your investment into yourself. But it's not really like the minimum rate that you could get. And actually, mortgages are a lot cheaper. The average interest rate for outstanding student loans is actually 5.8%, which, isn't crazy. It's not paying off a credit card, but that's also compounding. That builds up if you don't pay it, which they allow you to defer your student loans a lot of times, which is why many people end up taking 20 years to pay them off. And that 5% or almost 6%, maybe that now, but it could equal a lot more than that, if you take a year or two before you start paying them off. That's another thing, because there is pros and cons to student loans. You may be actually working your way through college completely by yourself, just paying it off as you go. You're working hard, and maybe money's tight one semester. Rather than getting kicked out, you just take a loan for that semester, and you can start paying it off. But if you do it that way, you've already paid off most of it. You're not taking out loans for the entire thing, and you can start to pay off that loan before you're even out. And they usually have programs where the interest doesn't start accruing until you've actually graduated, which that can be great, especially if you're going to start paying them off before you're out of school, which is what I personally recommend. Because if you're going to use this debt is a tool. You want to try to use it to its maximum beneficial potential to you. Don't use debt to hurt yourself, because that can be very dangerous, but it can be helpful. So you got to make sure you use that tool, just like how college is a tool. You want to make sure you get the maximum out of that university education, especially when you're paying so much for it. You want to just juice everything you can. And you want to do the same with the debts that you want to make,
I'd like to touch a little bit on that deferring your loan statement that you made. These loans are offered to you, and yes, you have the ability to defer your payments, but keep in mind, every time a payment is deferred, there's another 5.8% on average that is added to it for interest. Also, that will increase the time of your loan. And there are some people out there that their student loans are carried to their deathbed. And it's very dark to say it that way, but really it's very sad. People end up going to college and wanting an education all on good intentions, as college being a vessel for investment for their future lives. But you see people working basically their whole lives in order to pay off that investment. And it makes you wonder, is it really an investment?
Right. And it's strange because I think depending on what field you're getting into, you can take time off of college here and there, um, and pursue your education through the years and save money. And also, you maybe don't need to go to the most prestigious university you could possibly think of. Now, maybe you are a competitive student. Maybe you're just right out of high school. You've gotten, scholarships lined up for all the best universities, and it's a competitive thing. You're going to a competitive field. You're trying to become like an engineer or, whatever the most competitive thing you can think of, the most specialized type of surgeon, and you just want to get into the best school possible. That way, you have the best learning capabilities and the best chances when you're getting out. The best law firms if you're becoming a lawyer. You need to look at what you're doing. If you're going to become a teacher, maybe you don't need to try to go to Harvard. Maybe you'd like to. Maybe, especially if you want to be a university professor and you want to give the highest quality lectures possible. But at the same time, you don't need to try to go to Harvard right out of high school. If you are that great student and you can do it, you can take your AA and you can take other courses somewhere else in a more economical way. And then, you can graduate with your higher degrees out of a more prestigious university. And, you can still get your diplomas from those prestigious universities if that's what you desire. And hopefully at that time, you'll also have a greater income potential to be able to pay down this, before you even need to take on student debts,
Yeah, and
and that could be
a lot of state colleges and a lot of state universities offer major transfer programs. So going and getting your AA at a local community college, and over here in Florida, we have two really big community colleges. One is Palm Beach State College, which is a 2 year program for you to get your AA degree. And the other one would be TCC, which is Tallahassee Community College. And those two schools are essentially vessels into public universities. The students that come out of PBSC, Palm Beach State College, end up getting funneled into FAU, Florida Atlantic University. And the students coming out of TCC ending up getting funneled into either FAMU, which is Florida A&M, or Florida State University. So it's not always a terrible idea to go get an AAs and then transfer over to an accredited university, because then you also graduate with 2 degrees. You have your AAs degree and you have your bachelor's degree. And for the most part, your main degree, your bachelor's, is showed from that university. It's like you never even went to a community college.
definitely. And there's always going to be some elitists that are going to try to talk down to you about, whatever school you went to, but you just got to know. It's just like we were talking about with your investments. You need to decide what it is worth to you. And, realistically, if you do need some level of prestige in your field, but you don't need to necessarily be the top performer out of everyone in the country, then you can still add that prestige by attending a more prestigious university later. And you could do that at any time. If you want to go back for your master's, you can go ahead and get that done at a different university. And I think mainly the important part is saving on costs. Anything you can do. Realistically, it's not just about what you can get out of it. Like, you want to get the best education from your university, of course, but you want to make sure that it doesn't take from you. Because some people come into university and they end up switching their major so many different times, or maybe they end up racking up so much debt, or maybe they end up because they were switching their major, just because of maybe just switching their major once, they wasted a bunch of time in a degree that they didn't like, and right upon graduating basically decided, I hate this, I can't bear it for one more minute, I'm going to go right back into school and get a different degree. um and it could just take a decent chunk of your life. You need to plan this. It really is a big decision. People will push you one way or the other, just go for it. But you should be precise and pertinent, and think about everything that you do, every decision that you make, because while you should be getting things done in your young years, um you know these student loans and college, it can be amazing for you, or it can be extremely detrimental. And especially if you're coming back trying to get a new skill, you know make sure you take great care in what you're doing, because you know especially if you're in your later years, you're just trying to up your resume, get a better position, get that next raise or promotion. That could be great, but if you're also paying that off for the next 10 years, then that could not be great. you know if you have the money to pay it off, then there's obviously no problem. You can go ahead, you can get in there, you can pay it off and get your new degree, and get your raise that you desired. And you just got to be careful, and you got to work around your own personal financial situation. You can't just do what people say, like, regardless, because that's what you're supposed to do. You need to look at everything through the lens of what's going on with you. you know
Yep. And this point that I'm going to make here is actually not necessarily for older individuals trying to attend a university or college. This is actually for the younger kids. It's very discerning to see that these loans are provided to people that are as young as 17 years old, and they're essentially allowed to sign their life away on interest rates, on certain conditions and rules and regulations, and all things that for the most part aren't really researched by students, aren't really researched by younger individuals. And it's very tough, especially coming from a tough background, to have your parents or something understand these certain types of laws and contracts and everything, because a lot of it has a whole bunch of legal jargon in it that nobody other than lawyers can understand. So it's kind of like it's kind of pitched to you that it's this beautiful package that's here to help you. But if you don't properly plan it out, and of course you should do your due diligence and search for a bunch of different student loans to get the best rate you can. But it's tough just seeing that people end up signing their lives away at 17 years old to pay off these loans that have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% of interest that's compounded, and that can add up.
yeah.
That can make it essentially another mortgage or another car payment for you, 4, 5, 6, $700 a month in order to pay off your student loans. A lot of people end up going into debt. And in the first video that we had, we mentioned that I think it's the average college graduate comes out of college or university with at least $30,000 of debt. It's tough. Think about that compounded with 5 to 10% interest over 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and maybe you defer to payment. And there's a whole bunch of factors that play into it that you don't think about it, because it's basically packaged all pretty and neat for you in this nice little piece of paper where you sign away and here's your money. So just please do some due diligence and think about it, and definitely consider whether that loan is the right option for you, because there are a whole bunch of different loans that offer lower interest rates and a whole bunch of different benefits. But my personal recommendation would be stop at the student loans and apply to as many scholarships and grants that you can. Our state actually offers a grant for individuals of lower income levels called the Pell Grant. You have to have a certain GPA, and I think it's about a 3.0 GPA, and you need to have a certain number of community service hours, but they essentially give you $7,000 for the year in order to pay off your schooling. I think it's the real number is $6,995, but $5 off. What can you do?
Right. That's all great stuff too. You need to be aware of your resources when you're doing this, because like I said, it's a lifelong decision, and I feel like people kind of just push kids around, and it's a rush, and you want to make sure you're doing everything, you want to look competent, you kind of like put on that face, especially when you're young, and people are just pushing you here and there, saying, okay, go through this. And I understand how some young people may feel deceived, especially in the age of, signing up every app, every platform. You get through there and you got to agree to 17 different things before you're able to even like, look at the main page. And, I feel like they get in here to the financial aid office after figuring out how much everything was going to be and, making the first payments. And, they're like, oh, here, they're great. They're going to help you in the financial aid office. You can go in there and they're going to do everything you need. And they get in there and they're like, okay, go ahead and you sign these papers. This is what we've done for you here. And they're like, all right, great. Let me sign this. And what are we talking about with the financial aid? How you guys going to help me out? you know? So I understand how, some people might like just rush into stuff without ever like thinking, realizing that, contracts people are giving you should take pretty seriously, especially, 17-year-olds getting out of school. You want to be careful. It's not like these people are trying to trick you. I mean, there's no real gain for them. It's just that, it's their job and they got to do this stuff every day and they really don't have the patience for you. And you just got to expect to look out for yourself, with all the scholarships like Garen was talking about, with all of your loans, and different interest rates. You can get different interest rates. And part of that will help, if you actually have good credit as well. A lot of people, they won't have good credit, especially if you're 17. You might not be able to even get your own credit cards. You might be able to get on an authorized user if you have an adult that trusts you enough to be an authorized user on their credit accounts. But that could help you too. If you can get lower interest rates, that can save you a lot of money as well. So you just want to look at every little detail. If you are 18 and you're going into college, you can take out a few credit cards, not to use because you don't want to get in trouble that way and build yourself a different kind of debt while you're a student. But you can get a few credit cards and start building up your credit. That way you have a platform to work off of. And actually getting student loans, it can help your credit a lot, especially maybe if you're not good with credit cards. If you can pay off your student loans, the long-term duration of the loans and the amount of the money that's on there, it's actually a really big thing for, even young 20-year-olds on their credit. If you're not going to be, making big purchases, you're probably not going to be getting a mortgage. You're probably not going to be financing really expensive cars. These are the kind of things that will stay on your credit for multiple years and build up a strong base of a credit score. And this is one pro that definitely people don't talk about, is actually student loans can help your credit a lot, but I wouldn't recommend just taking them out if you just want to boost your credit a little bit. There's other ways you can do that without really costing you any money. So if you're already building a base of credit, that should help you use the cost of your student loans, and as well as taking on your student loans could definitely help you out to increase your credit for the future. That way you get the best rates on any type of car loans or mortgages that you're looking at, because realistically, any kind of debt that you're taking, interest rates, getting them as low as possible, and having a high credit score will just ensure that you pay the least on taking out that debt. The higher credit score you have on basically anything, they're going to say, okay, you're a less risky person, therefore you need to put less money down, you're going to get less of an interest rate, and maybe you don't need insurance on different things, or you're not going to pay extra premiums. So definitely going to help you out a lot.
I'd say that the biggest takeaway from this wouldn't be don't go and don't get a loan, and it's really not that. The biggest takeaway from this should be that you should do your due diligence. You should take a step back, stop thinking about the huge benefit that a loan can offer you by being able to go to school and then paying it off in the future. Sit down and really consider it. Take a minute to really read what that loan is about, what they have to offer, what are some of the things that come with it that are attached to it, whether that's the interest rate, whether that's the loan payment period, whether that's your monthly installments, you're deferring. There's a whole bunch of different factors that you should be looking out for. But just take a minute, think it through, run a few calculations. And honestly, you don't have to even know how to do those calculations. You can go on Google, type it in, my loan calculator, my monthly payment calculator, or whatever it is, type in your interest rate, compounded annually, monthly, whatever it is. Type in your number that you took out as a loan, and it'll calculate what your monthly payments are going to look like. So just take that extra moment out of your day. It should only take about 5 to 10 minutes in order to consider whether that loan is really worth it or not. And just run some numbers, look at some information, Google search some stuff, because honestly, Google is the largest vessel for knowledge that you could possibly hope for. It's just a massive search engine, so just go ahead and search it up. It's not time consuming. It's super time consuming, and it'll really help you in the long run. It'll help you differentiate whether that loan is worth it or not, whether it's going to mess you up in the future or not, what your realistic expectations for pay out of college is going to be versus what your bills are going to have to be, and that includes your rent, your car payments, your insurance, your student loans, and everything that goes into it. You have to really consider these things before you make a giant decision, like taking on some debt. And now debt,
Right.
we said it earlier, it's not the worst thing in the world. You can leverage your debt and use it as an investment for your future and end up paying it off like as time goes. And that's not always a bad thing. But, the average American makes the mistake of essentially walking into that financial aid office and being like, hey, can you help me out? And they pick one generic loan for you that doesn't waste a lot of their time, print out all the paperwork. Here you go. Highlight this, sign this, this, and this, and send you on your way. And you barely know what that loan is for. You really don't know what the payments are. You don't know much of the time period. And it's not that they're not there to help you. It's that they genuinely just don't have the time. So you walk out of there somewhat uninformed, and you've signed your life away to this massive loan that's going to be 10, 15, 20 years of payment every single month for the rest of your life. So just take a moment and really consider whether it's worth it. And now that doesn't mean don't go to college and don't take on a loan because you don't think you'll be able to pay it off. Take a risk. Life is all about risks, and you'll never be successful if you don't take a risk. You have to step back from a situation sometimes and be like, hey, I might not be able to do this, but I'm going to work my butt off in order to do it. And if you work hard enough, you'll get there. So student loans aren't a bad thing. They're not terrible by any means. It helps you finance your education, gets you on the right track, it helps you get your degree, and paddle on into the real world. But just take a step back, really consider if it's worth it, consider all your options, and see if you can put some extra time into scholarship and grant applications, because those will be your best friend. It's essentially free payment for your college, and that could be of any amount. There's scholarships that pay out 50, 60, 100, 500, $1,000. There are also scholarships that pay out your whole entire tuition, like I've received through the Ida and Cliff Viner Foundation. So just take a moment and really consider these things and map it out, plan it out. My favorite personal way of doing stuff like this is to create either an Excel or a Google spreadsheet and compare all the different scholarships, grants, loans that you're going to get, and see which ones are worth your time to apply for and actually go through with, and which ones really aren't. So, and it's not always about the main dollar amount to it, and sometimes it could be about the riders that come with it. But just take that added step, take the extra minute to plan it out, do some research, really read over a loan or a scholarship or whatever it is, and prepare yourself for what you're going to get yourself into.
It's very nice. Some great points in there, and I think a lot of that can be really useful. Another thing about whether you're getting scholarships or taking out loans, because really with taking out loans, being smart about it and considering your decisions, like Garen mentioned, part of that is also what you're doing with the loans. Like, you can be afforded extra money for your living expenses, for all of your room and your meals and all kinds of extra stuff. But realistically, you got to know too, if you're getting loans, only get the loans for precisely what you need. If you do just need it, if you need it for all your tuition, like maybe you just can't afford it at all, like at least try to be working a part-time job. That way you can pay for your room there. That way you can pay for your food and your other stuff, and that way you're not putting that on loan as well. And if you are putting everything on loan, and you're not working, maybe you are in an incredibly competitive field right now, and maybe there's like a few years where you just got to study, you're taking your bar, you're taking your medical exams, whatever it is, where you can't be working at all. You're putting that on all on loan. Don't go crazy. It's not a vacation. Be smart what you spend. You're still a college student. Everyone expects you to be broke. Don't go out and finance a new car. Don't, rack up the credit card bills at the mall. Be a student. You don't need to have the lavish, amazing decorations in your dorm room or your apartment. And again, another thing, don't go rent the nicest apartment in your last few years because like, you can't deal with living in the dorms anymore. You know, Live like a student. People expect you to live like a student. You could live in a room with nothing, with a cardboard box and a fold-out chair, and people will be like, they're a college student. You can socially be allowed to be the cheapest, scroogiest, you know, penny pinching person possible. Once you get older, like it's not really allowed. Like you can live like a student, you can save this money, even if it's not the most comfortable thing, but it's only a few years. If you're taking on this debt, you might as well save thousands of dollars that won't be gaining interest, and hopefully you can take those thousands of dollars and hopefully invest them and have interest working for you the opposite direction. And hopefully at that point that'll really get you focusing on money if that's not already what's driving you in your college career, because it's not always what drives everyone. And I think being just slightly more aware of all the ways that finance affects your day-to-day life and the way it touches everything that you do, it helps you be more vigilant to the way that the world really is, and how you need to take care of yourself and others. So I think there's a lot of stuff that college students can do, and when Garen says think about it, like that's what I say think about. Think about your lifestyle, think about what you're putting away, think about what you're actually doing with these loans. Are you using the money to go partying, or are you actually not working because you're studying really hard and you need to pass these next set of exams? Be smart about it.
It all kind of comes down to making the proper decisions. You were completely correct when you said only get a loan for exactly what you need. Because I see, at Florida State University, it's a very big party school. It's not hidden by any means. Everybody knows it. At Florida State, you see a lot of people go into student loans and they take on an extra $5, $6, $7,000 in between 1 or 2 semesters in order to kind of fund their food, fund their gas, travel expenses, and for the most part, what I see is they fund their habits. People end up going out clubbing and partying, and they spend $50, $100, $200 buying Y bombs for their boys, or shotgun and brews. And honestly, it's great. Always make those memories and have a great time with your friends, and do what you got to do, but don't take out a loan for it. Go out, get a job, use your hard-earned money, because then you'll really feel how it feels to go and take a $6, $7 Y bomb when you're only earning $10, $15 an hour. You're like, well, I almost just wasted 45 minutes of my day by taking one of these. And just consider it. Definitely do your due diligence. Think about what you are getting yourself into, because taking on that extra $5,000, $10,000 because you need to live, it could really extend your loan period by 5, 10 years. And you could say $5,000, $10,000 is nothing when I'm making $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 out of college, but that's also not a guarantee. There are a lot of people that end up graduating college with a whole bunch of variety of majors. It doesn't matter whether you're a business major, an arts major, or communications major, whatever. People graduate with a variety of majors and end up patty flipping at McDonald's or stocking shelves at Publix. And now, of course, there's, it's not a bad thing to be doing those things. We do need a workforce in order to do that, but it's also very difficult to go into a job like that, cover your housing bills, your costs, and then also pay off a student loan, because you're only getting $10, $15 an hour. It comes out to somewhere around like $30,000 a year, $25,000 a year. And when you have to pay maybe $5,000, $10,000 of your loan in that year, you don't really have much to work with. You're going to have to go through a lot of deferred payments, a lot of added interest, and you're going to extend the period of your loan. And it's really going to harm you in the long run. So consider it. Please, I urge you to consider it.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And I think people should be really careful. College, if you're just getting out of high school, going into college, right now is an incredibly important time for your financial future and your future life in its totality. Um, you can do a lot of things financially to help you or to hurt you. Plenty of people get into credit card debt, here in the colleges. Actually, when the credit cards first came out, one of the ways that they started getting people into them is they actually went out to the colleges and just started basically handing them out. They'd set up a table and they would just start signing people up. And you get your little plastic card and you can start swiping on everything. But you should be careful. If you need to take your loans, you need to take them. Be very sparing where you put it. And hopefully, if you're smart, if you work your way through it, you're careful with your loans, you don't take out too much, you start paying off your loans while you're in college. That way they can start to get paid down on the principal before you ever even gain interest. If you can do that, and hopefully you get to save a little bit of money and maybe even start investing a little bit of money while you're still in college, you can come out with an investment portfolio rather than a portfolio of debt that you're working to try to pay down with your new job that you're hoping pays you very well. Because being in that situation is a lot better than getting out of college with credit card debt, with student debt, with a car loan, and being out there scrambling, working whatever part-time job you have currently, looking for the job that in the career field that you actually want, hoping to make that 70 grand when you already have 70 or $140,000 worth of debt looming over your head, and you're now in the race against time to start making money before all these loans start coming due. You don't want to be in that situation.
Yep. Yep, I agree 100%. Just do your due diligence, understand what you're getting yourself into. These loans are a great vessel for you to fund, your education and grow from it and take away a lot from, your learning, but it's also a great vessel of putting you into very stressful and unwanted situations. So it all leads back to one, due diligence, and two, budgeting. If you budget properly, always set money aside from every paycheck towards one, your bills, two, a savings account, three, an investment account, and four, personal spending. Because I really do believe that when you put money aside for those other three things, savings, investments, and bills, it gets very stressful when your life is just dedicated to that. So always allocate some money aside for entertainment purposes, going out, clubbing, partying, catching a flick with your boys, or just chilling, basically doing whatever you want. That'll be your allocated funding, and when you run out of it, don't dip into another little section. Don't dip into anything else. The main thing when it comes down to this stuff is, with your investments and everything, you really should never touch them. And your savings account, you really shouldn't touch it unless you really, really, really need it. So just be careful. Definitely don't touch budgets that you shouldn't, because that can get you into a whole nother debacle. Sticking with the title of the video, you can get into a whole bunch of different credit card debt, and you won't be able to pay your loans, and it leads into a whole smorgasbord of problems. So just be careful. Take some time out of your day, do some research, and I promise you'll be just fine.
Definitely. I'd really like to know if anybody watching this here has liked any of these individual topics we've talked about, for reducing their stuff. I'd like to know if you guys kind of implement this, or if you see other people like ignoring, things that seem kind of basic and simple when it comes to managing their finances, especially as a college student. Because it can honestly be sad, especially if it's your buddies, your friends, girlfriend, taking on loads of debt. It kind of sucks to see, one of your close friends, close buddies, taking on a bunch of debt. You're like, man, that sucks, especially if you're not in the same situation. It makes you feel like, you should be helping them out, or like, they should be doing something better, you should be teaching them. But that's why we're kind of creating this. And, I'd like to see what you guys have to say down in the comments of, any tips and tricks you have for paying off student loans, if you have student loans, or even, if you have different ways that you've been able to avoid student loans. I think anybody coming to this video could definitely use that bit of insight. And I think, this video couldn't be long enough to say every way that you could, save yourself from getting drowned in student loans. So if you have something to add to the conversation, just drop it down in the comments. And I think, everyone will be happy to hear it. Um,
I
so,
think
with that said,
I think before we wrap this video up, I think we kind of summarize a few of our points by just digging into a little bit of pros and cons of student loans. And then we can wrap this up and take it from there.
that sounds good.
So let's start off with the pros. What are some of your pros with the student loans?
Definitely. One of the pros for sure is that, you don't need to stop college. If you're already paying it off, it's a big pro to just be able to continue going. You don't lose any credits. You just pick up whatever semester or year that you need to be able to finish out on time without slowing you down. Because time is money after all. That's your earning potential, and you don't want to be wasting it. So if you don't need to lose the time, you can take out loans in the short term.
I'd like to add as another pro for student loans would be that you actually have the ability to go to college. I know a lot of people are limited based on past or present situations financially, and whether that's with your family or you personally, it becomes very difficult to be able to fund such an expensive endeavor like a loan, or well, like an education. So being able to have a vessel to start that investment into your future is great. Student loans are amazing in that aspect, that it really is able to educate individuals and go off into college and get a degree and be able to go into a workforce with some sort of accredited degree, and not have to worry about being able to pay it off right then and there. So I believe in that aspect student loans are great as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you feel like you just don't have opportunities, of course, the student loan is going to go ahead and, get that paid for you. And you can go ahead and take the degree that you need. Of course, that as well for me, I believe is also a pro and a con. If you believe you don't have many opportunities in your area and maybe your economic situation is quite poor, especially with no credit history, you can get into very large loans that maybe you don't have any experience dealing with any type of credit or loans. And it can actually get you into trouble, when it's your first type of loan to take out. It's not just a small financing plan on a TV or, a cell phone or something. It's quite a large commitment. And, people may not be prepared for it. So it can also be a double-edged sword that they're so easy to attain, not that it's a bad thing.
100%. I think you're right. And it just leads back to that point that we kind of drilled in throughout the whole video of do your due diligence and understand what you're getting yourself into and budget properly, because that can really help you out with that. I think with that, we can get into some of the cons of student loans, things that you should be wary of. Would you like to start, Alex?
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest cons for me is that while student loans can be extremely helpful, we talk about the long term. So, of course, student loans can be anywhere from 10 years repayment to 30 years repayment. But realistically, it doesn't stop there. It can be to your entire lifetime. And actually, you can't even bankrupt out of student loans. So even if you go bankrupt because of your financial situation is dire, you still can't get out of your student loans. So that's probably the number one con, is that you can never bankrupt out of it. It's with you for life if you can't ever pay it down.
I think another con of it would kind of be the interest rates. I believe it ties into the whole timing aspect of it, because of course, if you could pay off a student loan in 1 or 2 years, it's really not that big of a deal. But if that student loan is dragged on between 10, 20 years, 30 years, or your lifetime, and it's compounded, it can become a very, very large problem. And the average interest rate is 5.8%. So that means there are some interest rates that are all the way up to 15, 20%. There are some interest rates that are near to none. So do your research and try to find one that has lower interest rates if you are getting a loan. But if you're already in the situation of actually having a loan with higher interest rates, try to work on doubling down on your payments. Maybe work on an extra side hustle or get an extra job in order to help fund that loan. Because the faster you pay it off, the less money you actually end up spending, because you don't have to pay for that interest that's added onto it. So double up on it and try to pay that off.
Right, right. That's an amazing plan. Actually, that's probably the best way you can go about doing it. Um, one of the next biggest cons I actually think when it comes to student loans, which we kind of mentioned before with the ease of availability, is that there's not really like special plans that colleges will make you go through if you are taking student loans when it comes to debt management and everything. You know, especially young people might not know this, but if you actually do have to bankrupt, they can make you go through like certain financial planning things so that you're responsible with your debt, and they can even basically stop you from getting other debt. So I think it'd be amazing, since these are learning educational facilities, if they provided a little bit more resources to people who had taken out debts, to learn about managing them, um, how much it's actually going to cost them over time. Now, look, if you're going into finance or banking, you're going to get into a lot of calculations like this about different loans and everything else, and you're basically going to go through all of that already. But, if you're going into the arts or the humanities or, whatever other kind of, field you could think of where you're not really dealing with money, you're probably not going to have too much of that in there. And even if you do have one or two classes where they mention it, you're probably just going to skim right through it because it's not the important stuff, right? Um, it'd be great if they provided a little more resources. That way, I believe there's more understanding around how these loans impact people's financial stability.
Yeah, and I think that's a big fault with the systems that we have with our institutions. We have this ability as a society to give without questioning, and there's no vessel to kind of question. It's like everything is prepared for you, everything is ready and set in these financial aid offices, and you never really have the time to just be like, all right, what am I doing? So, we do have a huge lack of information. We have a huge lack of, I guess, classes that kind of teach you financial security and that teach you about loans and the just kind of the mindsets and ideologies that you go through when it comes towards economics and, the monetary aspects of it. But yeah, I think that's a huge issue with our institutions. If we maybe added a mandatory class to, I guess, your graduating credit hours about financial literacy, or maybe college debt and loans, or debt as a college student, or even, debt in your early 20s, that kind of just touch on a few different aspects of I'd like to say, with student loans and all that jazz, but also with understanding how spending your money could harm you in the future. I believe that's a huge issue that we have because people don't necessarily consider how spending their day to day dollar will affect them in the long run. So maybe offering a few classes on that paired with financial literacy. And I know there's the economics credits when you're a business major, but I'd like to consider economics classes for everybody because it could be beneficial. You understand the flow of money and supply and demand, and it could really add a different perspective to everyone's day-to-day rationalization and decision making.
Definitely. I think financial education should be one of the cornerstones, especially in any form of education that you come across now. Um, just because, that's how you keep your life in order. That's how you maintain stability. It's like we said before, we want to make sure we have our community maintain financial stability and build their financial independence. And, that just makes your entire life stable. Anything else that happens, you have your financial independence, you could lose a job, you could come down with a serious health condition, you could be seriously injured. If you're financially independent and you have a high level of financial security, your life will be more stable. You're not going to get thrown into turmoil by even large events. And by that, you can also help other people. So, being young and being in college with the opportunities to take out these massive levels of debt, you need to make sure that, if you are taking these out, look at your own situation and see how you're developing your financial outlook. You know, this may not be detrimental to you. Maybe you already have a high level of income. Maybe you're already looking at just expounding upon that even more by the time you get out. And these debts are nothing. The biggest limiting factor to you is how quick you can get out of college. Take the debts, go ahead, get out of there, just keep paying them off. And, it can be great. Just make sure you're managing your financial situation. Um, and once again, I'd just like to say, like, anyone who wants to drop some information about what they have been doing, to pay off their loans or to save money in college, or, maybe even just to make money. So you got that extra money to pay off your loans or pay for your food or basically things that you don't need to put on your loan anymore. We definitely like to get that in there and get a conversation going down in the comments. I don't think I wanted to know, you got anything more to add on, the smart living, chipping down on the debt levels?
Yeah, just kind of one last thing. It's a little toucher. Um, just now is your time while you're in college to live as cheap as possible, live frugally. It's 100% acceptable by society, so don't worry what everybody thinks or anything like that, because nowadays, the early teens up to the mid 20s, it's 100% acceptable to, be as cheap as possible. Hunting your next bargain, hunting your next deal, planning out and pinching pennies here and there can really help pay down your loans and your debts. So it's not always as simple as getting a second job or, finding a side hustle that'll fuel your debts or anything or help pay down your debts. Sometimes it's just a different approach. You have to just pinch a few pennies here and there, and you'll be able to pay it down a little quicker. So take that into consideration, and I believe it'll really help with paying off those debts.
I couldn't agree more. And with that said, uh, like I mentioned before, we'd like it to continue going on in the comment section. Let us know anything you want to hear about in the future, and we can continue to expound upon, and we might even just add more down in the comment section. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the AP Finance and the Everyday Finance podcast. And tune in next time. Thanks, guys.